This is L.M. Voss on March the 27th, 1971, interviewing Mrs. Willie R. Kitchell, now retired, living Route 2, Box 60, Chickasaw. I'm going to ask Mrs. Kitchell to tell us her history of where she was born and when and why she moved to Chickasaw and about her parents.
I was born in Justin, Denton County, Texas. You want when?
No.
No. And we moved to Chickasaw proper in 1900, May the 1st. My father worked for the Rock Island at the bridge, in the bridge material department in Chickasaw.
Then lived in Agawam.
Then we lived in the section house in Agawam on the Rock Island Railroad in 98 and 99, the fall of 98, winter of 98 and 99. Came here in 1900 then, from the section house.
Did your father draw a claim from the government down here?
He drew a claim in 1901 when that drawing.
And where was that?
He drew south of Norge, or between 7 and 8 miles southwest of Chickasaw.
And did you go to school then in Chickasaw?
I finished school in Chickasaw, finished high school in Chickasaw, and I graduated in 1907, May the 25th.
And then did you teach school?
I taught school in the Chickasaw Nation.
How did you arrange to get your certificate?
I had taken an examination from the Civil Service and taught under the Indian Service from Muskogee, 5 civilized tribes. Had to organize the school in order to teach it.
They wouldn't let you teach in the white
schools? Not in the city schools without experience. I had to get experience somewhere else.
What was your salary at that time?
Well, the government paid me $90 a month.
Well, that was a pretty big salary then.
That was a big salary then. But they only allowed me 6 months for a term.
Well, that was still a pretty good annual.
Pretty good, I thought, for a girl just out of high school.
Now, since teaching school, what have you done?
Well, I have worked in the post office. I went into the Postal Service in 1912 and married out of the Chickasaw Post Office in 1920. Between that time, I had clerked in other stores.
You don't have any children?
No children, no family. I'm all alone.
Yeah, tell her about, you mentioned a while ago that you had lived in a dugout. Tell us about that.
Well, when my father drew the claim south of Chickasaw, southwest of Chickasaw, we had moved out there in a half dugout. I didn't go with them. I only went out on weekends because I had to work here in town and finish my schooling. And they lived there until they built a house later on. I don't remember the year Papa did build a house. But he owned the place until 1923.
Did your father do some farming there?
He farmed and had cattle.
After he quit the railroad?
Yes, he quit the railroad as soon as he could. He had to, to prove up on his place, he had to live on it.
Yes, I understand.
So after he quit the railroad, he was a farmer and rancher.
How many head of cattle did you have?
Well, I don't really know. He'd have sometimes 30 and 40 and sometimes less, but he raised mules, too. That was the most profitable thing he raised, more so than cows. But we did have, my mother furnished the milk and butter, or butter and buttermilk for the OCW when it first was organized in Chickasaw. Every morning she brought in fresh butter and buttermilk for the boarding.
You haven't got any left, have you? Good buttermilk left?
No.
Well, that buttermilk you get now isn't very good, is it?
I still make some at home.
Well, we'll come by and get a jug full.
I have.
Ask how many
I have
mules they raised.
Did you raise your mules or did you just buy them?
No, Papa raised the mules.
How many young ones would they have a year, maybe?
Well, probably 4 to 6. He didn't go in heavy, you know. He wasn't a big man, not a big rancher.
Well,
I was going to ask if she did embroidery work or cooking or
Oh, I do all of the household work and embroidery, and I knit now. That's my hobby now.
your eyes all right so you
Yes,
can do that?
I can knit,
Well, you're very
knit,
fortunate.
crochet, but I don't embroider because my hand is crooked.
do you know anything exciting? Like, was any prairie fires or cyclones or storms? Or what about the coyotes and
Well, the coyotes didn't bother here, but if you want a storm in Chickasha, on the night of my graduation, we had to stay all night in the Methodist church. It rained so that the buses, the cabs quit coming. Their mules got stuck. That fellow said the mules got stuck in the mud. Well, they wouldn't run them anymore. My father wouldn't get his team out of the livery barn, and so we spent the night in the church.
That was about 1927.
1907. No, 1907. 1907.
Well, then you had another flood here in about 1927.
Yes, and I was in that, or my husband was. He was working at the Chickasaw Mill.
Well,
He came home to get me because he didn't want me out there by myself, and they had to spend the night upstairs in the Chickasaw Milling Company's office.
Were both of those floods caused by overflow of the
Overflow.
Washita River?
Well, the first one, Lime Creek, up here in the north side of town. Of course, that was Wichita, or the Washita River, and Lime Creek overflowed both times and flooded the whole.
You've seen a great change in Chickasha.
Oh, yes.
You remember when they used to have the railroad trains through here, I'm sure.
Oh, yes.
What change would you say has been made in Chickasha since they don't have passenger trains anymore?
Well, it's pitiful. I miss the passenger trains very much.
Did you ride them? Or
I rode them, yes.
Or you just missed the whistle?
No, I rode them. I rode passenger trains everywhere I could go.
she thought the Indians, I wonder if there's anything different.
Anything special about the Indians and
They-
teaching them?
They never bothered that I knew of. Indians weren't I saw a lot of them come in from Andarko shopping and so forth, and I waited on them when they came in the stores where I was working, but
How many she had in school?
How many students did you have?
I had 65.
65
Every,
Indians?
no, they weren't Indians, only 2 Indians.
Only 2 Indians.
I had to have Indians in order to get to school. They had to be
But they didn't have to all be Indians.
No, it was just,
One room?
You're all in one room?
yes, in
And
one
how many
room.
grades did you teach?
I had for 16 beginners and 1 ninth grader. I
And
think
all
there
the way
was
between?
all the way between. 10 or 15 minutes was all you could give one class. And then I heard that ninth grader at the intermissions because she wasn't supposed to go to me, you know. She wasn't supposed to be there.
Did you find that the Indians were as apt students as the white students?
Well, the 2 I had, because they were in the family of their uncle that had 6 others, 6 of the white children, you know. They were just 16th Cherokee, is what they were.
Oh, just the 16th Cherokee.
16th
So they were
Cherokee,
mostly white.
just enough so that
They could qualify under the rolls
and get me to school, you see.
Do you remember long back in those days when there were lots of squaw men, that is the white men marrying the Indian women?
Well, I didn't know them,
You didn't know that?
no.
Well, you know, today we see on television the stories of squaw men and how they have trouble. Of course, that's just to make a story on the television, and you have seen them. Do you feel that those stories are typical of what actually happened to squaw men long back there in the 1900 or 10 or 20?
Well, I wouldn't know because I wasn't personally acquainted with any of the squaw men or any of the families of the Indians. These boys' mother, these two boys that I had in school, their mother had passed away and their father was killed. And they were living with an uncle. So they were more white people than Indians, I think. I didn't know anybody in Anadarko much. I never had much. See, we were southwest. And I did go away. I had an intermission living out of Chickasaw. I went in 1911 to Nevada. And that's where I went into the post office and was transferred back here later. After I had.
Do you remember anything during any of those early days that would be of special interest to the next generation?
Well.
Any habits that people might have had, or
Well.
any bad storms other than the floods that you mentioned, or any fires, or
Wonder about the food. Did they grow?
We grew most of our food back in those days. We didn't have you had home canning more than you bought from the stores.
Well, you don't have so much of that.
No. Don't have so much homegrown food. But we raised at home on the farm most everything we ate.
Do you still make your own bread at home?
Yes, made bread yesterday.
Well, we'll come out.
Yes, it's come out. I've got Christmas bread.
What do you mean Christmas bread?
Haven't you never had Christmas bread?
No, ma'am.
You put all the.
Let's talk to this.
Well, I know, but
That's interesting.
Well, the Christmas bread is made. It's a sweet dough, just like light bread. Only you put all the fruit in it, and nuts, and put in the light bread.
Then you put it away until.
Well, it don't get put away at my house.
Oh.
They ate a whole loaf yesterday afternoon. I have a sister-in-law visiting me, and we just wind it up.
What other thing do you make special
Well, I don't know.
in the way of food? Now, here I am almost as old as you, and I never heard of Christmas bread before.
Well, it's a German.
I know what fruitcake is.
Yeah, well, fruitcake. The fruitcake filling put in light bread is called Christmas bread by old-timers, or that is, old German. See, my father was H-E-L-M, Helm.
Yes.
That's a German word.
What was your name before you were married?
Helm.
Yeah, Helm, yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
Was he a native of the United States, or did he come from there?
Yes, he was born in Oregon. My father was born in Oregon. But his father knows where.
Did he tell you anything special about when he traveled to Oregon on the Oregon Trail? Or?
No, he didn't. He was born there. But grandfather tramped or walked most of the way from Virginia to Oregon with the wagon train.
How long?
That was my grandfather.
Did he ever tell you how long that took? Do you know?
I think there were between 2 and 3 years on the road. I'm not sure.
Or did they were with other people that were in
Oh,
wagons?
there were wagon trains, yes. And he was a boy when he started from Virginia. But he married on the way.
He married on the way.
He married on the way. He married in Iowa before he got to Oregon. But that's getting way out of Oklahoma.
Yeah, that's all right with you.
Did your husband hunt? Was he a hunter?
Well, my husband came from Iowa.
Did he hunt here in Oklahoma?
Hunt, not very much. He worked for the Chickasaw Milling Company.
Well, now, when you lived down in Agawam, you was getting awful close to Rush Springs.
Yes.
And Rush Springs is supposed to be the watermelon capital of the world.
Yeah.
And my wife and I went through there on this trip I was telling you about, and we got stuck in the sand.
Yeah.
And like everybody else. Well, did you ever eat a stolen watermelon from Rush Springs?
No, I didn't eat a stolen Rush
You may
Springs.
have missed something because
They're better.
They are better if they're stolen.
Yeah.
I know.
The boys stole them around Chickasaw enough
But you never did help eat a stolen watermelon?
Oh, yes, I've helped eat 'em,
Oh, yeah. Huh?
but not from Rush Spring.
I Well, did you have anything else special that you can think of that would be interesting?
Well, I wouldn't think so.
You think of anything, Miss Alaska? You think of anything that might want to ask about? You think of anything? You think of anything to ask her about?
You think anything else I ought to tell about Chickasaw and about the mill?
Well, whatever you need to know about the mill.
Well,
Wow, what about the mill? Now, you started.
well, that is her father's mill,
Oh, her father's mill.
her father's. And my husband worked between 35 and 36 years
For the mill?
for the mill. In fact, he worked before her father took charge. He worked for your grandfather, Humphrey.
Did he?
Mr. Kitchell did, yes.
Oh, fine.
And, well, you remember the flood in 27 when they all had to stay all night upstairs in the office down there.
What time of year was that?
Must have been in the spring because, it must have been in the spring because I had little pigs.
Oh, yeah.
And Lauren come out to get me, but I was getting the pigs out first. And then we couldn't get back to the mill.
Well, I wasn't here, so I don't remember it. I was away at school.
Yes, you never but,
The pig.
well, now, you said it was in 27, I'm pretty sure.
It was
Don't you think it
27,
was?
yes.
In 27. And must have been in the spring because we had young pigs.
Yes.
And my husband phoned from the mill that he was going to come after me. He wasn't going to leave me out home by myself, but he'd have to come back to the mill to take care of the motors in the bottom of the elevator. He couldn't leave. He was elevator manager for the Chickasaw Milling Company. Well, he came after me. I got the little pigs, in a tub and got them up in the barn so they wouldn't drown. And then he came after me, and the water got so high we couldn't get back to the mill. And we had to stay the biggest part of the night out here with some neighbors or friends, I've forgotten their names now, where the water was too high for us to drive into, you know. We couldn't.
How many pigs did you have in the tub?
Well, I think there was about 12. 12 of those babies. And I just threw a cover over them and took off.
Did they all live?
Yeah, they all lived.
Raise them all.
Yeah. See the water run through the pig pen as soon as we could get back home. We ditched it out and put the pigs back with their mother. They got along.
What did the mother do?
Well, she stood in the mud, but she wasn't small enough to drown, you see.
Well, the water didn't get over her head.
No, oh no. It just up over the little pigs,
I see.
because they were just newly born.
Well, you know, there's one thing about those pigs. If there's more than 12, they kind of have a hard time because there's only 12 stools at that lunch counter.
But I had another batch of pigs come. There was 2 sows, and they never knew which ones were their mother. They was born the same night, and there was about 15 of those, and they didn't know which mother they belonged to. Never did.
Did the mothers?
No, I don't think they objected. They just everybody come to dinner when dinner was ready. Our family.
Miss Kitchell, you were mentioning that you went to the Catholic schools here, and was that Catholic schools established here before the public schools were?
Well, I think so. Before they had too many buildings for the public schools, because they were teaching around in private homes. And my father thought better for me to go to the Catholic school because I was ready for high school. And I went to the sisters 3 years, from 1900 to 1903. See, 1 and 2, 2 and 3. 1901, then 1 and 2, and 2 and 3. Then I went into the public school and graduated in 1907.
How many was enrolled in your school at that time?
Well, I don't know. There must have been 18 or 20 in the 7th and 8th up in the high school. Up in the high school department. We must have had about 20.
What
That was
year
it from,
was this school established?
1908.
This college, 1908?
was was that 1908?
I don't know.
Yes, they told me
I
that.
think it was, something like that.
Well, I think
But,
No, I think
I didn't, ever go out here.
You never went to this.
No, I never went to college. Never went to this college. I took extension work from Teachers Normal after I graduated from high school.
Well, thank you, Miss Kitchell.